If everybody would please silence your cell phones as we get started. We begin each meeting with an invocation tonight, which will be led by Pastor Gregory Squires from the Freedom Life Church. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the school board's assistant, Tanya Culver, tonight. Our mission statement will be read by Gary Bressler, the principal of Chestnut Elementary School. Translation service by Belinda Reyes. And so if you would, please rise with me for our invocation.
Father, we're so grateful that we can come before your presence, and thank you for Jesus, and thank you for this place that we can pray from anywhere, no matter if we're in church or in a school board meeting. Lord, I'm asking you that you just guide this meeting, direct it, give them wisdom on every decision that's made for this upcoming school year concerning budget or anything else that they would decide upon. Father, continue to protect our schools, protect our students. Father, protect our teachers. Lord, give grace to everyone that's involved in the education of our children in our county. Father, may this county just become better and better every year. May, Father, just continue to help in every decision-making process, not only in this meeting, but through every other little meeting or other big meetings that may happen throughout the month and the year. Lord, we look to you for your help, for only you have hope and help that we need. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
You may be seated.
My name is Belinda Reyes, and I'm here to provide translation services. Mi nombre es Belinda Reyes, y estoy aquí para proveer servicios de traducción.
Thank you, Belinda. Brings us to our board comments. Ms. Castillo, do you have any comments tonight?
Yeah, just wanted to recognize a couple of our students that are doing some amazing things over the summer. So we have Sierra Runzak from OXA is actually on her way to London to study with Joffrey's, I don't know if you guys know who the Joffrey team, which is a really amazing dance team that she's going to go ahead and participate with. And also Joao Costa from Toho placed 13th in a national competition for the Adobe ACA certification. So our kids are not resting over the summer. They're doing amazing things.
Very good.
Mr. Soto?
Yes, welcome everyone to our public board meeting of July 16th, 2019. 50 years. 50 years after perhaps the greatest event of human achievement, which was when the Apollo 11 rocket took off from nearby here, less than about 100 miles away, on its way to the moon, where 4 days later, Commander Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, went ahead and landed on the moon, stepped on the moon, spent a few hours on the moon, and then came back safely 4 days later. Now, I wasn't alive when that happened. I was actually born a few months later. But I can imagine what it would have been like. I imagine that for the people that were alive, it would be a day that they would never forget. It would be a day that they could be 7 years old and they could say, I remember what I was doing when that news was announced. Maybe not when it took off, but certainly when they landed. Because it was a very long affair and it was televised. And people had television back then. But I can only imagine. I don't know what it felt like to feel solidarity with everyone in a whole planet, no matter where you were from, or what language you spoke, or what God or gods you believed in. It was a sort of temporary unity that transcended all the differences that everybody had. And everybody was, and no matter what, you anticipated there waiting for hours for one of us to step down that ladder and finally place foot on another celestial object, on the moon. I can only imagine what it is because I wasn't born there. And quite frankly, as an adult, I haven't yet seen a similar event in the history of my lifetime. But I could tell you, 50 years later, a lot of people are probably thinking about that right now. And just maybe we're due for something like that again, and hopefully very soon. And that is all for my comment.
And we were actually, the three of us, when we were waiting, were talking about the lunar mission. And we are going to do a fact check on whether Kelvin was born or not. I'm not sure I buy that. But I was in second grade when that happened. And I remember there were a lot of people in this town that worked for NASA. There were friends of our family that worked for NASA at that time. And I can remember as a very small child, we used to go stand in the middle of Mabbitt Street in downtown Kissimmee for every launch and watch them go up. So I did watch that launch. I do remember that launch. And I will tell you, when they landed on the moon, it is one of those things in my lifetime that I can see it today just about as plain as I did in second grade, which was not that plain. Back then, it was almost as big a deal to roll a TV into our classroom as it was to land on the moon. There were not TVs in classrooms. We had a black and white TV. It was about this big, rolled in there, and it was all staticky. It would come and it'd flicker in and out. I don't know if it's the TV or the coverage or all the above, probably. But it was truly, you talk about an hour and a half science course. It was pretty amazing back then because it certainly, I don't remember all of my other science courses. I can remember that day watching that. And like I say, it was more impactful for the fact that I had grown up with launches from NASA. Probably don't remember the Geminis, but I think I do remember some of the Mercuries and the Apollos. So it is amazing. It's hard to believe that was 50 years ago, and it's hard to believe that I'm the only one that was alive then on this board. This is terrible. I quit.
Just to clarify, eight and a half years later, I was born. So. But I agree. What a great achievement, not just for the United States of America, but for mankind.
Dr. Pace?
Just so that you don't feel alone, Mr. Thacker, I was 5. And it was a tremendously memorable experience. And I think, as Mr. Soto said, something that really brought the world together.
Yes.
And perhaps we do need something like that again. So, thank you.
I can still hear Walter Cronkite in the background of my ears talking about that. Okay. Presentations. We have our comprehensive annual financial report. Ms. Graber?
Ask Lisa and Angela to go ahead and join me up at the podium. Good evening.
Good evening.
So each year, the district's finance department prepares a comprehensive annual financial report that is audited and submitted to 2 separate award programs. The Government Finance Officers Association, known as GFOA, established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles to prepare comprehensive annual financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, and to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. Reports submitted to the CAFR program are reviewed by selected members of the GFOA professional staff and special review committee, which comprises individuals with expertise in public sector financial reporting and includes financial statement preparers, independent auditors, academics, and other finance professionals. Preparation of the CAFR takes tremendous time and effort of the finance department, including timely cooperation and collaboration with many of the district's departments and the full support of the superintendent and school board members. Tonight, I am proud to present these awards to Lisa Lynch, our Director of Finance, and Angela Barner, our Senior Accountant. In 2007, our school district first applied for the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, and with our 2018 report, we have now received this award for the past 12 consecutive years. So I'll just read what it says here on the certificate. It says, the Award of Financial Reporting Achievement is presented by the Government Finance Officers Association to the individuals designated as instrumental in their government unit achieving a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. A Certificate of Achievement is presented to those government units whose annual financial reports are judged to adhere to the program standards and represents the highest award in government financial reporting. So, I'll hand that to you. And then we have one more. So in addition, 3 years ago, our district also began submitting the same report to the Association of School Business Officials Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting Award Program, and we've once again received this award for our 2018 report. And this one states, the CAFR meets the criteria established for ASBO's International Certificate of Excellence. Please join me in congratulating them.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you guys for doing the tough work.
Yeah.
Chairman Thacker's coming. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Great
Thank you very
job.
much. Thank you, Sarah.
So I wasn't around for it.
And Sarah, thank you for you and your team. Y'all do a great job for the school district. You keep our records above reproach, and especially with the state audit going on right now, it's
means a
comforting to
lot.
know where we are under your leadership, and your team does a great job for us. So thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation from Garner and Associate Auctioneers, led by Ed Parker, Director of Purchasing.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
See, I brought the team along with me.
Good.
I brought my staff that really had a hands-on role with the auction, so we can recognize our guys from the warehouse and staff. Okay. I'm going to share a few tidbits from you, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gardner for the presentation. A surplus property live auction was held on Saturday, June 22nd, 2019. A total of 332 lots were available for sale. We sold 312. Sales prices range from $10 to as high as $2,750. I'll let Mr. Gardner introduce himself and his daughter, and he'll give us the final tally here after he says a few words.
Thank you. My name is Mike Garner. I brought with me my daughter Jessica, who is my protege and my mini-me, and she was very instrumental in helping me put this auction together. It's an honor to come in front of you guys. I've never been asked to come before a board and speak before after an auction, so it took me a little by surprise, and I am flattered. I've spent 30 years focusing and working on government surplus vehicles and equipment. We work for several government agencies, and I've enjoyed making some long and enduring relationships and friendships with some of the people that I've done business with. When I sent my check in to the school board, I sent a little note in there, and they asked me if I would want to read the note. But I'd like to take the opportunity of this public forum to not read the little note that I sent in, but to speak a little bit further to some of my feelings. This is, as I said, this is the first experience I've had with Osceola County as far as conducting auctions for them. And when I came to set up the auction, I was faced with a pretty daunting task of putting together an auction in the middle of a warehouse that was working at the time. It was a working warehouse where things were going on. And I do have to admit that I was overwhelmed by what we had to do, and mostly because of the fact that there was about 200 additional items and I thought were going to be in the auction that had to be sold. And there was a tremendous accumulation of items that needed to be sold, and so I had to focus on getting job done in a very short amount of time. So I brought in everybody that I could from my staff, including my daughter, her boyfriend, my wife, and my brother, and anybody else I could scrape up to come out and give me a hand with putting it together. And it was a very hot week. If you folks remember, in the middle of June, we had a lot of heat, and fortunately in the warehouse you guys have a walk-in cooler that we could walk into and get cool from time. So that was a blessing. But we work all day in the heat, and we go home in the evening, and we'd work on data entry and title work till about midnight. It was a difficult, and stressful, and dirty, hot job. But I will have to say this. It was one of the most enjoyable projects that I've ever done. And the reason I say that is because the team that you guys have in that warehouse is phenomenal. I had the pleasure to meet and work with the nicest, the most generous, accommodating, and helpful group of people that I've ever dealt with in a government agency. If you spend any time with these people in the warehouse, you'll see that these ladies and gentlemen work very hard to help anyone that needs help, anyone they can. Even if it's not their job, they're willing to jump in there and do that. They're fun people to work with, so they make it so you can't help but enjoy yourself when you're doing your job. And they create an awesome working environment. So, again, what I wanted to do is take this public forum to personally thank Nelson, Willie, and Benny, and Edwin, the Puerto Rican redneck, Mr. Ed, Katrina, and the others were involved. Jose's not here. He was, I haven't seen him since like the second day before the auction. Did he quit? But I did want to take this opportunity to thank them for what they did. They made this job. Again, I've never dealt with people at a government agency that were more accommodating and friendly and just great folks. And you guys are blessed to have. If I had people like this working for me, I would be so happy. They are an awesome group of people. And I did want to say that. And with that, I want to present to the school board this check for the proceeds of the auction in the amount of $90,097.64.
All right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. There's nothing better than hearing from somebody from the outside what a great team we have. I see it every day, but it's nice when other people recognize it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you all.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and doing it. Welcome to Osceola County.
I happen to know that the auction probably went well because a gentleman that I know.
Well, here, this is your check.
Thank you so much.
2020.
Trying to break it. A gentleman that I know went to buy a tractor and he couldn't because it was too expensive. So that means it went pretty good.
That's right.
When the guys that go to round up all the cheap stuff get bought out, so that's good.
Yeah, that is good. Brings us to appointments and transfers. Dr. Pace?
Yes, sir. Chairman Thacker and members of the board, just when I think we're done, something happens and we have another opportunity to add a great member to our team. If I could invite Megan Faust up to the podium, please. Megan has been an instructional coach at Cypress Park Elementary School, a teacher at Lawton Childs Elementary School, a teacher at Cypress Park Elementary, and currently serves as a program specialist at Orange County Public Schools. She received her bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies from Radford University, a master's degree in reading education from the University of Central Florida, and has earned her education leadership certification from the University of Central Florida. She is excited, I hope, about bringing her literacy skills and expertise and experience to join Mr. Bressler's team at Chestnut Elementary School that recently improved their school grade to a B, and we know that this... I am confident that Ms. Faust, as a co-partner with Mr. Bressler in leadership there and the rest of the team, will help bring them to the next level. So, Board, I ask for your approval.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Booth, and second by Mr. Soto to approve. Any further discussion, board, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 4-0. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm a little nervous. This moment means so much to me. I want to start by thanking the Osceola County School Board, Dr. Pace and her leadership team for providing me the opportunity to serve and lead in Osceola. I couldn't be more thrilled to join the Osceola family. I want to say thank you to Mr. Bressler and my Chestnut family now, including Ms. Hayes, who happens to be here. I couldn't be more excited to be a Stallion. Their math scores were fantastic this year. I can't wait to be there to support them and hopefully their ELA or wherever I'm needed. I do want to thank Orange County Public Schools, my mentors and leaders there, and my colleagues. One who happens to be here today, Kara, because they've offered me opportunity to serve within Orange County. My friends and family, my brother and sister-in-law are here, and I specifically want to thank my parents, Chuck and Terry, Chuhan, and my 2 children, because without them I would not be here today. So thank you for this opportunity. I couldn't be more excited to be here, and thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting, and currently I do not have any comments. If there's anybody wishing to address the board, just let us know right now. There's a little yellow sheet in the back. But seeing none, hearing none, we will move on to our. Yeah, and that's true. This is a good opportunity for those of you who might like to step out and go and celebrate. You are welcome to do so right now. And Mr. Boyd, while they are doing that, if you'd like to come forward, we will recess the regular school board meeting and call to order the public hearing. Mr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
You have the floor.
Thank you, sir. We're here tonight to provide a public hearing of the school board rule proposed revisions that we shared with you at the workshop in June, and we also updated them based on your feedback at that meeting. So we'll start with a revision to Rule 3.40. It's rather lengthy because it is in response to current legislation that the governor recently signed. Ongoing creation of new policy language and revisions of existing policy language in order to comply with recent changes in state law and to provide consistency with district precedent and current practice. In regards to Senate Bill 7026, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act from 2018, and Senate Bill 7030 in 2019. Specifically, it revises paragraph 4B to clarify state requirements for the school district's annual completion of the Florida School Safety Assessment Tool, known as the FSAT. Revises paragraph 5A to clarify that the school district shall appraise the risk of an individual student that poses a threat to the school safety via the threat assessment team. Adds paragraph 5C to stipulate that upon the availability of the behavioral threat assessment instrument developed by the the Florida Department of Education pursuant to section 1001.212 clause 12 Florida statutes, the threat assessment team shall use said instrument. Adds paragraph 8 to stipulate that the superintendent shall review and may implement safety and security best practices recommended by the Florida Department of Education. And it revises paragraph 10H to 1, clarify that all administrators and academic deans who are responsible for administering student discipline shall report all school environmental safety incident reporting (SESR) incidents in a timely and accurate manner pursuant to State Board of Education rules and school district procedures. And it requires the Director of Safety, Security, and Emergency Management to review the timely and accurate submission of each school SESR report data to the Department of Education. Moving on to Rule 5.32, zero tolerance for crimes and victimization. It's ongoing creation of policy language for the same reasons as the other rule related to those laws that I listed. It revises paragraph 1 to clarify that the school district shall appraise the risk of an individual student that poses a threat to school safety. It adds paragraph 2 to require that acts that pose a threat to school safety as determined by the threat assessment team shall be reported to local law enforcement. And it adds paragraph 4 to clarify that petty acts of misconduct which are not a threat to school safety do not require consultation with local law enforcement. Rule 5.70, student records. It is ongoing creation of policy language for the same reason as the rules above. It adds paragraph 8 to clarify that 1, the transfer of student records for students who transfer from school to school shall occur within 3 school days, and that 2, student records shall include all verified reports of serious or recurrent behavior patterns, including threat assessment, evaluation, and intervention services, and psychological evaluations, including therapeutic treatment plans and therapy or progress notes created or maintained by the school district or charter school staff. The next set of changes are all reflecting changes proposed for the Code of Student Conduct. It revises the policy document throughout to comply with recent changes in state law and to provide consistency with district precedent and current practice. It revises the Code of Student Conduct matrix of infractions and consequences to clarify that student behavior coded as a FITE, for example, FIL or FIT, must be referred to local law enforcement. Revises policy language to reflect recommendations from the school district's School Uniform Policy Committee. It revises the title page and the Dear Students and Parents section to add information regarding Fortify Florida access. Dress code policy requirements deletes the first sentence, adds specific criteria regarding shirts. Shirts clarifies that school-sponsored shirts must be worn from the current school. Bottoms changes the title from pants to bottoms, deletes part of first sentence, adds specific criteria regarding bottoms. Skirts dresses deletes section title skirts dresses. Shoes footwear clarifies sandals that are appropriate to the student's class schedule. And then outer garments. Clarifies, number 1, no outer garments without zippers or buttons may be worn on school property unless the outer garment is a school-sponsored item. Outer garments with a zipper must be completely unzipped if worn inside the classroom. Long overcoats are not permitted on school grounds or at any school-sponsored event. School-sponsored sweatshirts from the current school may be worn over the approved school uniform. And when outer garments with a hood are worn, the hoods must be removed from the head while in school property or a school-sponsored event. Personal electronic devices. It specifies that when personal electronic devices are permitted by the principal, students may only use one earbud. Shorts, etc., deletes the section Shorts, Acceptable Shorts, and Revocation of Shorts Privileges for excessive violations. School Uniform Dress Code, etc., deletes sections School Uniform Dress Code, Basic Standardized Clothing, Additional Uniform Alternatives Considerations, School T-shirts, Outer Garments, District-Wide Dress Code, Financial Considerations, and New Students. However, the section Student Appearance and Dress Code in its entirety shall be understood as the school district's uniform dress code policy for the purposes of state law. Technical Programs adds section and specifies that for safety and employment training purposes, students enrolled at the technical college will wear the uniform for the program. If there is no uniform, this rule shall apply. Violation of the policy of unacceptable appearance, not necessarily clothing, adds that earrings on the ears which are not oversized are permitted and do not interfere with the safety and welfare of the student. Those are the changes that we're proposing based on the workshop that we had with you in June. I'll pause now to allow you the opportunity for the public to make comment and then request action from the board on approval of the changes submitted.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to address the board with comments on these rule changes? Hearing none. Okay, I saw somebody point. Hearing none, then we will close the public comment portion of the public hearing. And we will adjourn the public hearing and do we have the vote?
You have to vote,
Oh,
yes, sir.
Tonight's vote night.
Tonight's vote.
Yes,
I thought we
sir.
voted
I make a
back-
motion to approve.
back in the regular. Okay,
Changes as submitted.
okay.
Second.
I have a motion, excuse me, by Mr. Soto, with a second by Ms. Castillo, to approve the changes as submitted. Board, any comments, discussions?
I just want to thank the staff for all their hard work on this and going back to the board, looking at everything and trying to come up with a better policy that kind of fits better for today. So kudos to you guys. I know we had a little discussion here the other night, couldn't quite figure out, all I was talking about was zippers and buttons, but the staff got there finally and we got it done. So thank you guys for doing that, and we appreciate it. Seems to be very clear now, so thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
And we will launch a full campaign regarding our communication and expectations for the dress code starting Monday when our community relations team comes back. But I do believe that we're in a place now where consistent expectations and enforcement will be in place. And our special programs office has already done a great job of helping to set up uniform closets for every single one of our campuses. So there's really no excuse for our students to not be in compliance with the school board's established dress code starting day one of school.
And it looks like positively Osceola is here to get a jump on that announcement.
We are
Thank
very
you.
excited.
Thank you guys for that.
Exclusive.
Yep. Any other comments, board? Hearing none, we had a motion by Ms. Shetto, second by Ms. Castillo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Boyd, and thank you to your whole team who worked on this
Thank
to
you,
get it
sir.
done correctly.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Pace.
Thank you. All right, now we will adjourn the workshop or the public hearing and reconvene the regular school board meeting. Give me 1 second to find it again.
Oh, yeah, you got to go back to the.
Yeah, I got to go back to that. Board, it's approval of our agenda. Are there any agenda modifications or changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Dr. Pace, we're good. With that, I'll entertain a motion
So moved.
to approve the agenda and the consent.
Motion to approve.
Have a,
You were obviously talking to Kelvin, not listening. I made the motion.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Second by Castillo.
Second by Castillo. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
I have a motion by Tanya, second by, have a motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Castillo.
Mrs. Booth or Mr. Booth?
Miss, I don't know, some booth, whoever, the booth that's in the room. To approve the agenda as well as the consent items. Board, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 4-0. Brings us to our informational presentations and strategic plan update. Dr.
That would be me.
Pace?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Thacker and members of the board. I wanted to share just a few of our academic success highlights and then talk to you a little bit about where we are as we move forward with a new strategic plan for the years 2019-22. At your seats, I have provided for each of you some summary data sheets for our academic success data. It's data that I have sent to you over the course of the last week since school grades came out last Thursday, but I also wanted to highlight just a few things that have happened since 2015-16 when I first joined the team as the superintendent and you provided direction for our first strategic plan. As you can see in the district grade components, we've increased in 10 out of the 11. And while certainly this year's growth was not as significant as I would have liked and hoped, hope is not a strategy. We have a plan, and we are making slow but steady progress. Over the course of the last few days, Dr. Fritz and the assistant superintendents and I have been planning very carefully what we need to do to help jumpstart this particular academic growth and move our district continue forward. Also on the back of that sheet is a multitude of data, many of which I've already shared with you. Again, the school grade components at the top, but also then some components for acceleration, Algebra 1, biology, our dual enrollment credits. While we don't yet have this year's dual enrollment credits that are earned, because that data is going to be reported in Survey 5, I did include for you the fact that in 2015, we had 5 high school seniors who graduated with their AA degree. And the class of 2019 included 76 students who graduated with their AA degree. So the team, our principals, our teachers, our students, our families are working very, very hard to help make that happen. We also just last week, in addition to AP data and school grade data, received our current IB data for the current year, and Gateway High School has increased its percentage of diplomas from 69% to 84%,
and Celebration also has an 84% IB diploma rate. So some real exciting things to celebrate there. I also just discussed with Ms. Stevanowicz, our Executive Director for CTE, our industry certifications. And this year we are on target to have almost 1,000 more industry certifications even than last year. So the team is really working hard to demonstrate that our students are college and career ready, although our acceleration rate was not what we wanted it to be at only 49%. That is a lag number. It represents 2017-18 data rather than 18-19, and we're excited to work with our high school principals and teams over the next couple of days and weeks to make sure that that number is moving in the right direction as we move forward. Some specific highlights for elementary school are on the screen and in the PowerPoint that you have. Our fourth grade ELA scores increased by 3 points. 12 schools increased third grade ELA. We had 15 schools increase their third grade math scores, 12 schools increased fourth grade math, and 10 schools increased fifth grade. And 13 schools increased their fifth grade science in elementary school. Overall, as a district, 98% of our schools improved or maintained their school letter grade. And we're very, very excited about that. And this year, 55% of our district-operated schools are A's and B's. In middle school, we had some additional success, particularly in the areas of acceleration, as we continue to have pass rates in both ELA and math, as you can see on the screen ahead of you. In science, 6 of our middle schools increased their pass rate on the 8th grade science FSA. And for our end-of-course exams, those acceleration opportunities, civics went up 4 points. 6 of our middle schools increased the pass rates on the algebra EOC, 6 on the civics EOC, 4 on the geometry EOC, and 6 middle schools had a 100% pass rate on the geometry EOC, and 8 middle schools had a 100% pass rate on the biology EOC. So some real success in helping our high-achieving students get on their way with high school credit so that that will prepare them down the road to take even more rigorous courses when they enter high school. And then in high school, we had geometry scores, which increased by 5 points. Our U.S. history scores were up by 2 points. And 4 schools increased their 9th grade ELA, and 4 schools increased their 10th grade ELA. So overall, again, while growth was not as rigorous and as fast as I want it to be, I'm a little impatient there, we are making slow but steady progress. Just today, we also learned that our ESSA subgroups, the federal reporting mechanism, every single subgroup this year is above the federal minimum of 41%. That includes our ESE students, which we're very, very proud of. Additional evidence of learning progress across the board for all students. Over the course of the last few weeks and since the summer, when we've had our own retreats and looked at data and had our annual stock take where we looked at the progress of all 5 goals back in June, we've been driving toward what our new goal statement should be. The board established that they wanted to maintain basically our buckets of academic success, talent management, fiscal responsibility. I did recommend that we combine community engagement and governance, and that safety and security, I felt like, probably needed its own bucket, so to speak, because of the priority that it has for the board, for the community, for the state, both in terms of how we allocate our resources, both financial and people, as well as our protocols and procedures that are required. And tonight we'll be asking for your approval of our mental health plan, which is another part of this particular area of our strategic plan. So these are the academic success goal statements that the team has come up with so far. What I need from the board tonight is your direction that, yes, we're on target with these goal statements so that my team can then move forward with the strategies, activities, milestones, and metrics that we'll present to you at our next strategic plan update. And then again, remember that the plan is to bring back to you as a board with the budget in September a strategic plan for 2019-22, as well as that budget aligning our resources with what you guys have prioritized that we need to be working on. So for academic success, we want to ensure high quality, equitable, standards-based instruction for each student in every classroom, every content area, every day. One of the areas that we've talked about, particularly in the area of science, is that we know we need a more targeted effort there, and we want to make sure that in terms of equity and standards-based instruction, that we're serving our ESE and ELL students with excellence, as well as all of our other students. For talent management, we want to champion a culture that attracts, develops, and supports high-quality employees. I know that Ms. Castillo and I talked earlier today. We continue to hear that our first-year, second-year teachers need more mentoring and support. And that's a part of this, attracting, developing, and supporting our high-quality employees, both in the classroom and without. For fiscal responsibility, we want to continue to utilize resources to enhance the learning environment and ensure financial sustainability. We don't know when the economy may go in a different direction, and while fiscal resources are always a challenge for us, we feel like we owe it to our taxpayers to continue to demonstrate responsibility with those and prioritize those for the classroom. For community engagement and governance, based on the board's direction, we want to build confidence and trust among all internal and external stakeholders. We felt like before with community engagement and governance, we had done a good job of changing perceptions with many of our external stakeholders, but we know as we've listened to our employees over the course of the last year that we also need to make sure that we're building that confidence and trust and ensuring smooth communication between the board, the district, and the folks in our schools. And then finally, for safety and security, ensuring a safe and positive environment for all. That would be about both the school hardening, the school safety and procedures, and the mental health for our employees. So, Board, I invite your feedback and discussion on these 5 goal statements.
Mr. Booth?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I really pushed for that governance to be added there as our 5th one when that was going on, because I really believe in the way we handle ourselves up here, the way that we conduct ourselves, really makes a big difference on everything that we do. With that said, I absolutely agree, Dr. Pace, with what you and your leadership team have done here. And I'm glad that we have kept governance there, because I really, really believe that that's important. And that includes also the relationships that we have with our municipalities and our sheriff and police departments, which I think are vital in this environment. But with that said, even though that was my big one that I pushed for, I certainly believe that this is, in this current environment, is the correct way to go. So I just want to put that out there.
Any other comments, Board? I would echo Mr. Booth's comments also. And I like keeping the same basically the same categories we had and adding the safety, basically, with all the things going on. Unfortunately, it has to be there. So good job, you and your team. I do have a question. We had a retreat scheduled for the 31st. Do you feel we still need that, or do we not, Board?
Well, that was the next thing I was going to seek feedback on in terms of the statements. In terms of next steps for us, the team is currently working on fleshing out those strategy profiles. If I get the blessing of the board tonight on these goal statements, that process will naturally continue to evolve. We have another workshop planned with our consultant from Deliverology, DeliverEd, on Monday, where that would be finished to a point that we'd be happy to bring those back to you and provide them to you at our July 30th meeting. We do have the retreat scheduled for July 31st. I'm welcome to meet with you all if you want. I'm not sure that we need it to provide direction, but that's something that you guys can kind of tell me. And then in September 20th would be the adoption of the budget and the new plan.
Mr. Booth?
I don't know if Ms. Culver shared this with you or not, but I shared it with her earlier that my professional schedule has changed, and now I do have to fly out of town on July 31st for a meeting in Texas, so I will not be here. Well, I'll be here, but I don't think there's any way I can get that 8 o'clock flight and still make a 5 o'clock meeting. You know how that goes. So anyway, Board, I will not be available on the evening of the 31st.
I will be out of town as well, in Texas. Where are you?
Where are you going?
I'm going to Dallas.
No, I'm going to be south of you. I'll be down north of Houston and Bryan, Texas.
It sounds to me then I think the board, first off, we probably have an attendance issue. Secondly, I'm not sure we continue to need that retreat based on where we're at.
I think we're pretty solid. I think you and I spoke earlier, Dr. Pace, and even throughout the week. So I think that we're pretty solid with the direction that we want to take, and we were the ones who had this discussion at length. So I would give my blessing tonight if the board agrees.
Absolutely. To not have it.
To not have the meeting and continue with the process.
I don't think you can cancel that.
All right.
Washer will be here on the 31st.
Don't tell Tim. Nobody tell him.
Well, Board, again, we appreciate the clarity of direction that you provide through your feedback to us, both at our annual stock take meetings, where we go over those particular goals and progress strategies, as well as in our individual board retreats. And we look forward to bringing you back a solid plan. I'll have draft strategies for you by July the 30th.
And Dr. Pace, I know I should know this, but I don't. I can't remember. Now that we have our school results in and our scores in, where are we on your review process?
That's Mr. Kruppenbacher I was going to bring.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that. All right.
It's soon, so look at all the green data points.
Okay. All right. Brings us to our proposed budget. Ms. Graber, are you leading us in that, or Dr. Pace, or all the above, or Jose? No. Okay.
Good evening again. Tonight, we're presenting the 2019-20 proposed tentative budget, which you should all have a copy at your seats. So, this presentation is for informational purposes only. You will not be actually approving the budget tonight. The budget being presented this evening is based on the conference report, or the first FEFP calculation, that was released back on May 1st. The Department of Education should release a second FEFP calculation later this week, which will replace the estimated tax roll with the actual certified tax rolls. Based on that information, we will then make the necessary changes and present a tentative budget for your approval at the July 30th public hearing. At this time, I would like to briefly walk you through the budget and provide a summary of the information within the document. The first page of the document is a letter from Superintendent Pace that outlines the goals of the district's strategic plan. As we work through the budget process, we are constantly ensuring that funds are allocated in alignment with these goals. The next page provides a district overview, including the county population, projected FTE, and number of district employees. The pie chart in the middle of the page reflects funding from federal, state, and local sources and the breakdown of schools by type. As you can see, for the 1920 school year, 29% of public schools in Osceola County are charter schools. The graph at the bottom of the page summarizes the operating budget by major category. Next is a table of contents to guide readers through the document, and then that brings us to the introduction section. On page I-2 is a budget timeline. The highlighted sections are the board meetings related to the budget process as required by the Truth in Millage Act, or TRIM. Tonight we're presenting the proposed tentative budget. The public hearing to adopt the tentative budget and millage rates will be held on July 30th, and then the public hearing to adopt the final budget and millage will be held on September 10th. Following the timeline are budget conventions. This section provides definitions and additional details regarding the development of the budget. And this graph provides a historical overview of the district's FTE over the last 10 years. The total projection for the 1920 school year is 69,498 FTE, which represents an increase of 1,774 FTE over the 2018-19 year. The next couple of pages provide the FTE projections broken down by individual school. The Property Appraiser's Office certified the tax roll on June 26th. Line 4 of the certification reflects the gross taxable value of $30.9 billion. The certified amount of $1.2 billion more than DOE's initial estimate in the conference report. The proposed millage rate may be adjusted when the certified tax roll is incorporated into the second FEFP calculation. The graph on page 1-11 provides historical data relative to the property tax millage rates and levies over the last 10 years. You can see how the total millage rate has decreased while the tax roll has continued to increase over the last several years. Since the legislature implemented a rollback of the required local effort millage rate in the 2016-17 fiscal year, $70.3 million less has been levied than if the RLE had remained constant. This next report compares the fourth FEFP calculation for the 2018-19 year to the 2019-20 conference report. The base student allocation of $4,279 is shown on line 14. This is an increase of $75 per student over the prior year. At the bottom of the page on line 50, there's an increase in total funding of $26.9 million. And right below that, you can see that this equates to $206 increase per student, or 2.87%. However, since the Best and Brightest program is now included within the FEFP, it must be removed for a true comparison to the prior year. Page 1-13 shows the same conference report information without the Best and Brightest allocation included. At the bottom of the page on line 50, you can see that this equates to a $108 increase per student, or 1.52%. Page I-14 shows the change in total FEFP funding and funding per student since the 2012-13 school year. Although funding levels have increased over the last several years, it's important to note that a large part of the additional funding per student has been allocated to restricted programs, including Safe Schools, Mental Health, and the Best and Brightest allocations, as well as the funding compression allocation, which may be non-recurring. Page I-15 shows the statewide ranking of funding per student, with Osceola at the bottom receiving $7,357 per FTE. The next several pages define and describe the different components of the FEFP. As part of statutory requirements, the board will also adopt a policy for the expenditure of lottery funds as part of its tentative budget. On page I-22 is the proposed policy for the 2019-20 school year. The current funding estimates are near the top of the page and include $237,000 in discretionary lottery funds and close to $1.4 million allocated to fund school recognition awards. On page I-23 is a summary of the overall budget by fund. The details supporting the summary is in subsequent sections of the budget document. The top right section shows the total proposed millage of 6.275 mils, and the bottom right reflects the total proposed budget of over $1.2 billion. Since the certified tax roll for Osceola is greater than the estimate used in the conference report, we will expect to see a decrease in the RLE millage rate to net the same revenue from local collections. The next section of the budget document presents samples of the resolutions to adopt the tentative millage rates and the tentative budget. The amounts will be updated based on DOE's second FEFP calculation, and we will be seeking approval of these resolutions at the public hearing on July 30th. TRIM requires the board to publish specific advertisements related to the budget. The next few pages are samples of the following advertisements. First is the notice of budget hearing. However, if the proposed millage rate exceeds the rollback rate, we will be required to instead publish a notice of proposed tax increase. Next is the budget summary ad, which is similar to the budget summary we discussed earlier, except for the exclusion of the Internal Service Fund. And lastly, we have the notice of tax for school capital outlay. The final versions of these ads will be published in the Osceola section of the Orlando Sentinel on Sunday, July 28th, as required by TRIM guidelines. The general fund budget is the operating budget for the district. It accounts for most of the district's salaries and benefits and other operating costs such as utilities, fuel, supplies, and equipment. Page 1-3 is the long-range forecast for the general fund. The 2018-19 figures are still estimates as we are currently in the process of closing out the last fiscal year. However, we are confident that the district will end the year with a balanced budget as planned. For the 2019-20 school year, our current estimate is an operating surplus of $1.6 million. The projected expenditures in this plan do include a 2.5% salary increase for employees. While the district intends to continue operating within a balanced budget, it is important to point out that as Osceola continues to grow, our reserves must also increase to maintain the unassigned fund balance percentage shown at the bottom of this chart. The general fund budget summary provides the same information with some additional detail. On this schedule, estimated revenues are presented by funding source and appropriations are presented by major category. Page 1-5 through 1-7 are supporting schedules. Each of these schedules also compares the 2019-20 tentative budget to the 2018-19 adopted budget. Pages 1-8 through 1-10 show the detailed budgets of the reading and supplemental academic instruction allocations. Pages 1-11 and 1-12 show the detail of the Safe Schools allocation to support our SROs, along with additional line item funding allocated for Safe Schools. On page 1-13 is the full list of line item allocations. The total recommended line item funding is $20.9 million. So switching gears from the operating budget, the debt service fund accounts for the district's long-term debt. Similar to the schedules in the general fund, a summary of revenues and appropriations is included with a year-to-year comparison. The summary is followed by supporting schedules by individual fund. Skipping to page 2-7, this is a list of future debt service payments through the year 2034. The total principal amount outstanding is currently $273.4 million. The sum of principal and interest payments through 2034 is $317.2 million. The debt capacity analysis on page 2-9 shows the amount of $1.5 million capital outlay funding that is obligated for the repayment of debt. At the bottom of the page, the percent indebted measures that amount as a percent of revenue. Since the district has not issued debt to build new schools in recent years, this percentage indebted continues to decline as the district pays off our old debt. Revenue and expenditure activity related to the construction and renovation of the district's buildings and grounds are reported in the Capital Projects Fund. The major sources of revenue for the Capital Projects Fund include impact fees, the $1.5 million capital outlay tax, and sales tax. Page 3-3 is a summary of the 5-year capital plan, which is followed by detailed plans broken down between capacity sources and non-capacity sources. On page 3-4, you can see that this plan includes funding for the construction of Celebration Island Village Elementary School, a new business wing at Poinciana High School, 2 K-8 schools, and Old Hickory Tree Elementary. On page 3-5, I would like to highlight that additional funding has been added for student computers, bringing us closer to a 7-year refresh cycle. Also regarding athletic facilities, each comprehensive high school will continue to receive $15,000 annually in capital funding. Following the capital plan are the standard schedules for revenues and appropriations and supporting schedules by fund. On page 3-12 through 3-19, detail the appropriations for safety and security, technology infrastructure, capital renewal, and deferred maintenance and renovation sales tax projects, all including carryover budgets. That brings us to the Special Revenue Fund, which is used to record the activity of the food service program and federal grants. This section is comprised of a summary of the budget and supporting schedules by fund. And the final section of the budget document is the Internal Service Fund. This fund accounts for the district's self-insured group health and life insurance and casualty insurance programs. The board's contributions for employee coverage and deductions for dependent coverage are recorded in this fund. Again, standard schedules summarizing estimated revenues and appropriations are followed by supporting schedules. Pages 5-5 and 5-6 show the costs associated with the Health Insurance Trust Fund. This budget includes the proposed plan design changes and premium increases scheduled to become effective on October 1. The projected beginning fund balance of $9.7 million does include an additional transfer from the general fund to ensure that we do not fall below the required minimum balance of 2 months of expenditures as of June 30th, 2019. The next 2 pages show the activity related to the Casualty Loss Fund, which includes our property and workers' compensation insurance programs. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions related to the proposed tentative budget at this time?
Board, no questions?
Just to say thank you, Sarah, and just for the public to know that we do have lots of meetings with Sarah and the superintendent on all this, so just because we're not asking questions here doesn't mean we're engaged. I'd say we're pretty engaged on this. So thank you for all your work, and thank you for taking some of the suggestions.
Yes. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you guys for your time,
Your
and
team.
thanks to Jose for putting the document together. A lot of work goes into this.
Yeah.
It looks great. It's easy to follow. Brings us back to agenda. John, you're not, the rules are in here. You're not going to submit on it? Okay, Mr. Pengelly, I don't know if he was going to submit, is not here anyway.
He's not here tonight,
Okay.
he will be here next month to present the second.
Okay, and that is fine. And the monthly business advisory board meeting information is in here as well. Brings us to the regular agenda board, item 16.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Ms. Castillo to approve item 16.01. Board, any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 4-0. Item 17.
A motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Soto with a second by Ms. Castillo to approve the Encyclopedia Britannica. That seems very appropriate coming from Mr. Soto.
I had a comment on that. It's been a while since we've seen a presentation on that product. I believe that at least part of you guys haven't seen it.
No, I think Mr. Wheeler called for that.
Do you remember that one?
I think so.
Okay. Anyways.
I did have Mr. Clark provide me with the specific usage data before I recommended this for the board's approval. If you'd like, I'll be happy to forward that information to you.
Just your input. I mean, is this something that is really,
I questioned it, and Mr. Clark was able to show me that the validity and reliability and usage is there by our students as they conduct their research in our schools. It's an online tool, so.
So when I see these things on here and I'm going through and studying the agenda items, especially if it's a product our students are supposed to be using, first thing I do is ask my daughters. Both of them have used the product.
it's just that the stuff that's out there is so good, Mr. Booth.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And
I get
And
it.
there's a lot of it too. And I'm a big fan of all of the technology that we use for learning. So I just wanted to go ahead and put that on the record. Thank you, Superintendent. All right.
Okay, without any further comments, a motion by Mr. Soto and a second by Ms. Castillo to approve item 17.01. Board, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 4-0. Item 18.
Motion to approve item 18.3 as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Castillo with a second by Mr. Soto to approve item 18.03. Board, any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 4-0.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve item 19.1.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Mr. Soto to approve item 19.01. Any further comments or discussion, Board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 4-0. Mr. Kruppenbacher, I believe you've got a couple items for us.
Mr. Chairman, following the board meeting on July 30th, I need to schedule a closed executive litigation session in the matter of the Osceola County School Board versus Trade Logistics Aviation Authority, or Academy, pardon me, case number 18-6777 with the Florida Department of Administrative Hearings. There'll be a court reporter. The only matters discussed will be litigation strategy and/or settlement. And in attendance will be the board members, Dr. Pace, and myself.
You want to
Okay.
schedule that
After.
right after the meeting, that same day?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be right after.
Or if you can't be, I can schedule it whatever day works where we have all of you. So if you want to move it to the August meeting, we can move it to the August meeting. I just need to schedule it.
Ms. Castillo?
I won't be in attendance.
Okay. I know this is an
Schedule.
important.
Let's find another.
Yeah.
Tanya, when would be the next board meeting on August?
August 5th, I
I
think.
mean, if this is a closed meeting, can we also have just a meeting? I mean, is there,
Does it have to be right after a board meeting?
No. I was just
I
figuring
know
if that.
it's super convenient.
We can move it
of
to August,
course.
to the August 5th meeting after that meeting if it works.
6,
Oh,
August
that's
6th.
not-
August 6th.
that's only a
Does that
few,
work?
that's only a few days.
August 6th work?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
We'll do it after the August 6th, and following that meeting, there will be a closed meeting per the statutes where Mr. Boyd and I have concluded, along with our outside counsel, who will be present, an exhaustive amount of work that I think we both would publicly like to say to Dr. Pace and her management team, thank you, because they were really great at doing a lot of work to get stuff to us.
Okay.
And the good news is, we're in really good shape.
Okay, good.
Okay? But we'll brief you after that meeting on that issue. And then, finally, I'm going to hand out to you the evaluation forms for Dr. Pace. Tanya, I'd ask if you'd get one to Tim. I'll email you copies too. And I would ask if you could get it all back no later than the last day in July.
Okay.
If
And
that works for everybody.
Do we just deliver it back to the office?
If you'll deliver it in an envelope, Tanya,
Yeah.
for me, then I'll get it, so you don't have to.
Perfect. Thank you.
And you have one other item, do you want to discuss the Knightsbridge?
Yes. Just when you're doing the evaluation, it is the green items that are to be looked at. Am I right, Dr. Pace? The green items.
Do we have this electronically too?
I'm going to email, or Tanya, could you email a set? We'll email you.
Yeah.
And finally.
And certainly, board members, if you would like to have an individual conversation and provide feedback, I find that very helpful and would be welcome and receptive to scheduling that at your convenience.
Thank you.
Then finally, members of the board, at the last board meeting, you acted, I believe it was the last board, on the Knightsbridge matter with a condition that I would discuss the matter with Mr. Wyshire. We have not been able to connect, so I would ask that you, by consensus, agree that we're holding off executing anything until we discuss the matter with Mr. Wyshire, and we'll bring it back to the board meeting at the July 30th board meeting.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you much.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Dr. Pace, any other?
No, sir. We do have unfinished business.
I
so-
see that. Unfinished business. We have the one item under unfinished business, approval to uphold the previous recommendation to deny affordable workforce housing application for exemption of educational system impact fees for Backlot Apartments LLC. Board, your pleasure. Does everybody remember?
Does it need a motion?
What is, just put on the record what the issue was.
Yes, sir. Last spring, we had, at one of our construction workshops, I shared with you that we had received a request from an entity to waive impact fees because they wanted to build an affordable housing project. Backlot is actually a hotel renovation project that they're converting into apartments out on the West 192 area. At that time, we took into account the language in the ordinance of our impact fees that says that the school board does have the right to waive impact fees if we have adequate capital dollars to meet all of our capacity needs without those impact fees. It was not my recommendation to you that we waive those fees because clearly we continue to have to plan very carefully and be very responsible with our capital dollars in order to keep up with our extensive growth. I sent to this individual the denial of the request to waive the impact fees last May. The project proceeded. They reached a point where they wished to seek their CO, certificates of occupancy, from the county. They originally reported to the county that we had waived the impact fees. And the planning department instead contacted Ms. Blake, our planning department. She was able to produce for them the document that was sent, I believe it was May 13th, 2018, so around there, to this particular entity. I shared with you via email, I believe about a week ago, because the gentleman had called, was very anxious right before the 4th of July about this issue, and indicated to you that I would be bringing back this item for your future consideration, but it is my recommendation that you continue to uphold the denial of the waiver for impact fees for this project, because we certainly do not have adequate dollars to meet all of our capital needs at this time.
And just, whoever, I'm not sure who would ask, see Mr. Booth, who would ask the question about do we need a vote. I think we should take a vote, mainly because of the circumstances around this, where we've also already issued a letter for denial, but making a formal one for the board to be very clear. Mr. Booth?
Is there any documentation anywhere, any communication on file that from any staff member here at the school district that would have led this entity to believe that they were going to get an impact fee waiver from the school district?
Absolutely not. The denial was very, very clear. In my conversations with the gentleman on the phone, he did recognize that they had received it at his office. The indication was that they were moving offices and that his father was very, very ill. His father has since passed away, which, of course, we're very regretful for. But the denial letter is very clear, Mr. Booth, and he recognizes that it was sent and received.
Okay, so they're not arguing that at this point anymore. Okay.
His counsel called me last week, and I spoke to him about this, was very clear on what our previous stance and letter had been. Just based on some things that happened over the week, I called him back this morning, and I wanted to say, was I not clear? He said, you were absolutely clear that this was not approved.
With that understanding, Board, I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth to approve to uphold the previous recommendation with a second by Ms. Castillo. Board, any other comments?
Just have a comment.
Sure.
On the procedure, so I just, maybe, just briefly, what procedure was used in order for this issue to be put on the agenda for reconsideration? I mean, they have, it seems to me as everything was in order, just like Mr. Booth, there was nothing, this is just, and yet, we taking another, is this an appeal that they filed or something like that?
I think it is in order. We're just making a restatement, reaffirmation.
I understand. I just wanted to know, it sounds ad hoc. I just want to know whether that's the case or not.
There was not a formal appeal made, but he did beseech me to bring it back to the board for your consideration. Because as superintendent, I don't have the authority to waive impact fees without board direction. And so that's just what, again, I'm asking you to reaffirm.
Mr. Soto,
Mr.
yes, if you, I understand the nature of Mr. Soto's question. If you would like us to write up a standard procedure, like it'll come back.
It should be something other than
we can easily put
I lost
together
it or the dog
right.
or something. There's
No,
got to
no,
be
no.
something else to go ahead and bring
And
it
what
back
we'll
before the
do
board
is-
because we're basically taking an opportunity here to overrule what the district decided according to the process and everything.
No.
Without a,
We're reaffirming what we did.
We're affirming what the recommendation is from the
I get
superintendent.
it, but
I think what Mr. Soto's saying, if I may, Mr. Soto,
Please, yes.
is this presented an opportunity for the board to reverse itself.
Yes.
And what he's saying is, could we have a formal
I'm asking you,
procedure
how did we get here? That's what I'm saying.
where somebody doesn't come in and just cry to Dr. Pace, and so it gets on the agenda? So what we'll do is write a very simple procedure that makes it substantive, otherwise your decision's
I have a
final.
feeling we're going to see more of these.
It goes
I
along to your
understand
question, though, Mr. Booth. In other words, there should have been at least something, a mistake or something substantive for us to go ahead and even bring this thing back.
I agree. I think that's why I asked why we need to even vote at all. And
That's
I
my
agree
point.
with your premise.
And that's what brought the question to my mind.
I actually don't want you to vote. And the reason being, I don't want to have some lawyer claim that this vote is the one that can be appealed. You made a vote, it was communicated. If timeframes have been blown, they can live by that date. And you should just say your decision stands.
If we ever
But we
make a
already
vote, or
did.
it's just we
No, because-
told them we were not going to take it up.
We didn't make the formal.
No, the district has that.
This was discussed at a facilities workshop in May, at which time the board provided direction, but not a formal vote, that you were in agreement with my recommendation at that time that we weren't going to waive the impact fees. We have a process for individuals to apply for either an impact fee waiver or an impact fee reduction. For example, if it's a 55 and older community, they submit a process, they go through the approved procedures. I then can sign off and say, yes, we can waive these impact fees, or they're going to pay the short-term rental piece, or they're not going to pay one at all for 55 and older. This was similar but slightly different in that we didn't have the same formalized procedure for affordable housing impact fee requests for consideration. And so that's when I came back to the board and said, I want to make sure that I am following the board's direction with this particular type of an impact fee waiver or reduction request. That's when then we followed our procedure and sent them the denial letter, which is in your board packet, along with their original application to request the fee waiver. I'm just seeking to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we want to continue with that. But I'll follow your council's recommendation in terms of whether or not we need a vote or not.
Unless you want to tell her you have a different decision than
Then
hers.
we don't have to do anything.
Then I would do nothing other than we will draft up a procedure, because I do think we may begin to encounter
Oh, yeah.
Will you withdraw your
some of
motion?
these.
I will withdraw my motion, and I will,
Yeah, just let the decision stand from the school district.
Yeah, basically, it wasn't brought forward, and I'm fine with, but you said something I just wanted to clarify. I mean, define affordable housing. I mean, I ask this question a lot. So we don't have any sort of language for or against affordable housing. It's whether it's multifamily or whether it's single family, and I don't want to create one. I'm just saying, it's not that we're.
This particular project is converting hotel rooms.
Yeah, I know exactly what the project is, but I mean, the word usage is something that's troubling for me personally. But so I just want to clarify for everybody who's out there, it's not affordable housing that we're saying we're creating some sort of different look or take for affordable housing. We have an impact fee structure, which is multifamily, single-family, townhomes, condos. That's the structure. I mean, because.
And a provision within the ordinance that someone can create an alternative impact fee study, which I believe we're scheduled for the end of this month to be dealing with that issue with the board. But on this issue, I don't see any reason you need to take any action.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
You withdraw your motion, you
Withdraw
withdraw
my
your second.
motion, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I withdraw my second. Just on the procedure itself that you're going to create, this wouldn't impact this particular case. This will be for future cases?
For future
Okay.
cases, and candidly, Dr. Pace did exactly what should have been done based upon the factors that were being looked at and evaluated. I supported it legally, bringing it back to you, and if you wanted to change it, you could give her different guidance, but she's within her authority to act, and we will make it very clear on how people appeal or don't appeal.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good there.
Could I say one more
Oh,
thing?
I'm sorry.
Let's just make it very clear, just to anybody that's developing or planning a community or a development here in Osceola County, please look at the funding structure of what school district, county commission, the cities receive from the state, and understand that without an impact fee, I mean, we could build all the affordable housing we want, all the housing we want. Where are these kids going to go to school if we don't have funds to build the schools? Which roads are these folks going to drive on? Where's the deputies at the sheriff's office? Where's the firemen? So where's the parks? All of these things, they have to be funded. So let's remember to take those into account before we really, because as you know, Ms. Blake knows, because we've had this conversation a lot, that these type of housing units that we're discussing that have really been in the news here lately, these are actually the units that create the greatest impact on the school district, and the numbers bear that out. So please remember that as we have these discussions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Board members, any other comments or questions? Ms. Castillo?
I have no further comments.
Mr. Soto?
I'm good.
Mr. Weishire? Hearing no other comments, Dr. Pace, Mr. Kruppenbacher, we will stand adjourned.